Carol Shields is a 47-year-old housewife, mother of 5, now living in Winnipeg, who's becoming very well known for her novels about the world of the average housewife. Her latest novel, A Fairly Conventional Woman, features Brenda, 40 years of age, happily married, but now going through some changes on the edge of middle age. He was undoing the buttons. She, half protesting, uttered a girlish meow, and he reached around and unhooked her bra. It was an old game of theirs. He, the pursuer, the flatterer, the one with all the lines, some of which were both true and untrue. And she, silent, sly, pretending reluctance, pretending to be preoccupied, and then finally allowing herself to be won. There were other games, other scenes, some sharper and more savage, but this was the one they returned to again and again. It was a way of invoking youth, it seemed to Brenda, a kind of play they put on for the entertainment of their younger selves. He murmured into the cavity between her breasts.
I don't write romance fiction. I don't write mystery novels. I don't write spy novels. I don't write science fiction. So what's left, I suppose, or what people tell me I write, are modern psychological novels about fairly ordinary people.
Carol Shields says this world of wife and mother has been completely ignored by novelists until now. Critics say that's boring women's stuff, but she feels homemaking is an important role for women and a legitimate topic for novels. Carol's writing, until recently, has taken place mainly in moments stolen from the demands of bringing up a family. But as her children grew up and left home, she was able to spend more and more time on her craft. Her work is a reflection of women much like herself, the middle-class wife and mother who gets little attention or recognition.
I don't think of my writing as being autobiographical. I suppose I can't help putting in some of my own values, my own observations about society, about people. You know, when people say you write about happy marriages, that always surprises me a little bit, because the marriages that I've written about, the relationships I've written about, seem to me far from perfect, hardly idyllic. Some problems there are some, for example, in the last 2 novels, the marriage that I've written about, first from the husband's point of view and then from the wife's point of view. I suppose one thing that I was writing about was how even people who love each other remain ultimately mysterious one to the other. And there are whole areas of their lives where there is no communication. And whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. Sometimes I think there's far too much communication in the world.
Carol Shields started writing in grade school, and by the time she reached university in her late teens, she was writing constantly. As was the case for most of her classmates, her college graduation was followed by marriage and the birth of 5 children. It was her husband's career as a professor of engineering that brought her to Canada. Carol's stories about ordinary people are getting more and more recognition in the literary world. Her short stories have been published in magazines such as Canadian Forum, Chatelaine, and Saturday Night. This novel, Small Ceremonies, won the Canadian Authors Award in 1976. Other novels followed. Happenstance was a look inside marriage from a husband's point of view. The Box Garden is a story of a young woman with a failed marriage trying to bring up her son on a meager income.
I think it's that blank page that frightens most writers. A friend of mine calls it page fright, which I think is a nice way of putting it. But once you're past that, you've made a mark or 2 on the page, then I think you're on your way. I've heard people say that once you start a novel and get it rolling, it writes itself. And I think this is one of those myths which just is not true. Writing, you know, it's hard in the beginning, it's hard in the middle, and it's hard in the end. It's hard work, and I think you hear writers say, well, I put in 4 hours a day, and I think other people who aren't writers think that that's not much of a work day. But it is. After 4 hours of writing, that's a pretty exhausting chunk of time. I think people want to say, when they read a novel, aha, I've felt that way too. I think there's a sense of completion or satisfaction when we recognize in something we read, something that we have felt, and perhaps we thought we were the only one to feel or to experience something in that particular way.